and who may be on the field. This past year, we had the distinct pleasure of meeting Bill Monbouquette, who anchored the Red Sox pitching staff of the early 1960s. He clearly was a star on a team that otherwise played well below 500 each year. He was the staff stopper, recording double digits in wins each year from 1960 to 1965, with his highlight being a no-hitter on August 1st, 1962 against the Chicago White Sox, and early win. Here, Mambo is seen comparing notes with Earl Wilson, who also threw a no-hitter in 1962 for the Boston Red Sox. In fact, Bill Monbouquette pitched 2 one-hitters, one in 1960 and one in 1964. Monbouquette was a 4-time All-Star and started the 1960 All-Star Game in Kansas City's Municipal Stadium. During his 11 years in the major leagues, he played for the Red Sox, the Detroit Tigers, the New York Yankees, and ended his career with the San Francisco Giants. His best year was 1963 when he won 20 games against only 10 defeats. His strikeout-to-walk ratio was outstanding, striking out 1,122 while walking only 462. Here's a unique opportunity to interview one of baseball's stars in the 60s, whose path crossed with the likes of Carl Yastrzemski and Ted Williams. So background. Pittsburgh Pirates was big in this area, and I was one of the initial members of the Dick Stewart fan club.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about Dick Stewart in Boston. Did your paths cross, didn't they?
Well, yes, we played together for, I'm going to say, 3 or 4 years, but I'm not quite sure how many years he was there. It was probably 3 or 4 years. Quite a character.
It's okay. This is private stock. This is not going out on the public TV.
Yeah, quite a character, and he hit a lot of home runs there in Boston.
That's right.
And none were cheap. And I can always remember one time I was in my stretch, and Dick had struck out, I don't know, at the end of the inning or whatever, and so started the inning, someone got a base hit, and I was in my stretch and everything else, and all of a sudden I heard the crowd starting to roar, and I stepped back off the rubber, and I looked around, and somebody had thrown a paper plane, and it came floating down, and he caught the ball, and they gave him a standing ovation, and I'm looking over at him, and he went, that was Dick Stewart, he just, nothing bothered Dick. And another time there was a high pop-up in the infield, and Earl Wilson was pitching, and there was some wind blowing, and he's just up there looking at it, not making, an attempt to, to catch the ball. So Ed Pursuit, our shortstop, is coming over, and Earl Wilson is coming over, and both of them collide. And Stu picks up the ball, and he flips it to Wilson. Well, Wilson is some kind of mad, and for a second I thought they were going to fight right there. But that was Stu. I mean, a lovable guy. I mean, and a funny guy. And he was fun to be around. It didn't bother anybody, and it didn't bother him to strike out as much as he did. And he won a few games for us. I mean, he hit 30-something home runs there once or twice. He was what you call one of the colorful characters of the game. Right?
What are the other ones you played with? Really unique characters.
Well, Pearsall was a character.
Yeah.
The center fielder I ever played with.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people say, how can you say that? Well, I was only there with Jimmy for a year or two, but his theory was, and it's true, more balls land in front of you than over your head. Usually they're over your head, they're off the wall or over the wall. And he always got great jump on the ball, and he could come in and get that ball. I mean, you'd swear it was going to drop in for a base hit, and he would catch it. Now, I remember when I was in high school, and the Red Sox played the Giants in a Jimmy Fund game, a charity game there.
Mm-hmm.
They used to have throwing contests, home run contests, and Pearsall had a great arm. He hurt his arm. I remember him throwing against Mays, and he hurt his arm. But he was one of those characters. I mean, I threw a ball at him on the on-deck circle. He was walking up to the plate. You know, he was calling me a French, you know what. And I took a little, you know, I didn't particularly care for what he had said prior to him. But, and he hated people that smoked.
Yeah.
And he couldn't stand it. But boy, was he a great center fielder.
Yeah. So you threw it, he was on the on-deck circle?
And he started up. In fact, he was the first guy up that I faced after pitching my no-hitter, and he had base hit up the middle. And of course, you know, he's going to start getting on me about that. But and I was in my stretch, and I wheeled around and tried to drill him in his ribs, you know. But no, he was a great center fielder, you know, and I say that like I played with Mays. I ended my career with Mays, and I played with Mantle. And over in center field for the Tigers was Mickey Stanley. He was Mickey Stanley was a big guy, 2'6", 210, 15 pounds, but could really go get a ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dick Raditz that hit Japan?
Dick Raditz. If they used him like they use relievers today, get 100 saves. I mean, to see what I mean, you try to tell the modern day guys about how good he was. You know, 3 innings today, 4 tomorrow, day off, maybe 2 or 3 more. You know, and they kind of look at you funny and say, "Hey, wait a minute, well, we don't do that anymore. I couldn't do that." Of course you couldn't. But if you used him once a day for 6 times a week, easy.
Yeah.
Easily, to me, the best there ever was. I'm saying it in my era, and now that I'm still in baseball and what I've seen since, you know, retiring. But you know, a lot of people don't know this, but he pitched against Mantle 63 times and struck him out 47 times.
My golly.
You know, he was practically, you know, unhittable. And you know, for a while there, I think he held the strikeouts per inning all time. And he threw a lot of pitches. And that's the thing you're trying to convey to these kids. You don't have, the more pitches you throw, it goes into the hitter's favor.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is ask a hitter, would they rather hit 2-0 or 0-2?
Right.
I have never heard anybody say I'd rather hit 0-2.
Right.
And I think that's a major, major problem. Guys miss with their fastball. And there's so much aiming. They aim the ball, and they'll they refuse to believe that they're nibbling, and they're always in that hitter's delight situation, and they wonder why they get hurt. Well, you don't see too many curveballs going out of the ballpark. You know, there's not a lot of curveball pitches anymore.
That's right.
And you know, there's so many two-seam guys. You don't see the good four-seam fastball anymore. You know, I mean, I could start naming them, but they're just probably on my hand.
Right. Like who? Name them.
Well, Clemens, Martinez, Randy Johnson, Schilling. They're all the power guys, yeah. And although, and you know, and those guys probably will throw two-seamers too, but their best fastball is the four-seamer. And you know, you don't when a guy's warming up in the bullpen, you don't hear that coming out of his hand. You know, it's like a lot of stiff wrists.
Right.
Of course, when you're throwing a two-seamer, you don't want to be using it four-seamer, I mean, because you're trying to slow the ball down. But the four-seamer, you elevate most of the time out of the strike zone, especially when you're ahead. And I watch pitching and how much pitches are open, they're not closed. You know, I played 3 years with Ted Williams, and we used to kind of jerk him around a little bit, and he'd say, has anybody seen the guy pitching tonight? Maybe a new guy that was brought up or something. And one of us would say, yeah, you better be ready because he throws at 100 miles an hour. And that didn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because what came out of Ted's mouth was, can you pick the ball up off of him? Where is he throwing from? Where is his release point?
Mm-hmm.
That's all he wanted to know. He didn't care if you threw it 1,000 miles an hour.
Right.
Because, I mean, he's going to be right on it. And, you know, I was an 18-year-old kid when I first signed with the Red Sox, and I'm sitting in the dugout, and I'm getting set to go throw batting practice or whatever. And I'd be listening to Ted say, "Well, come on, we gotta wear this staff out here because we're going to Cleveland. We're going to have to look at Fella and Wynn and Lemon and Garcia and Narleski and Mossy and all those nasty guys." Then I'd hear some of the other guys on the club say, "Well, what are you worried about? You know, like you're having trouble with those guys, you know?" But he's the greatest hitter I ever saw. He's the greatest hitter I ever played with. And when
Boston left fielder Ted Williams carried a blazing bat and provided another hitting landmark. In 1941, Ted Williams led the major leagues with a .406 batting average, and no one has hit over 400 since. In the All-Star game that season, Williams came up with 2 out in the bottom of the 9th, and the American League trailing by a run. Ted Williams hit the most dramatic homer in the history of the Summer Classic, winning the game. A fitting blow for the man who would also lead the majors in home runs. In the 1940s,
him in that lineup. I can always remember going to Baltimore or Washington, flying down, and I'd say to Tom Dowd, I'd say, "It's Ted, I don't see him on the plane. Is he already gone?" No, you know, I shouldn't be telling you this, but he's gone to visit some kid in a hospital that, you know, the parents wrote and asked or called or whatever. Maybe it was some kid that had cancer and was bad, and those are just a lot of the things that Ted did that he didn't want anybody to know, which I don't blame him. I'd probably do the same thing. But he was wonderful to play with. I mean, he was great to me. Not many guys can say that they fished up at his place up in the Miramichi River in New Brunswick and stayed at his place and all. And watched him tie flies and get on him and needle him a little bit and say, you know, I think you missed one there. And, you know, and then we had a friend of ours, and I was living in New Hampshire, and I said to him one time, you know, I need for you to bring your dogs down because I got a lot of raccoons and they're in my garden and everything else. And at night he'd come down with the dogs, you know, he had his flashlights and everything else. But he used to, and he's a fellow that came from Greece, and he'd cook up the lamb, and it was just some of the most delicious lamb I've ever had in my life. And Ted had some one time, and him and Ted became very close friends, and so we went, his name is Gilly Garrelson, we went with him up to Ted's place. And so, you know, Ted always just liked to rag on all the guys and everything else, and I said, Gilly, we'll take care of him. And so I get a little closer to him, and I called Gilly over. I said, hey, I'm telling you right now, I think he's mad. forgot the meat. You didn't bring the lamb. Oh, is he going to be mad? And I'm making sure Ted's hearing me. And he's talking, and all of a sudden, it's that big turnaround. You forgot the meat, and he was, oh, he started, and we get him going. But it was great fun. I mean, he treated you like you were a king, and like you were a son or a brother. And every morning he'd step out on his cabin and he'd give us the big toot toot, and it was time for breakfast. But and considered by lots of people to be one of the top fly fishermen, and I fly fish, but I'm not like him or anything else. But I remember in the clubhouse, he'd have his fly rod and he'd have a little rubber lure, and you would be able to take and open your pocket of your uniform, and he'd flip it right in there from 30, 40 feet away.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, fly fishing is tough. And, I mean, Ted could do a lot of things. I mean, think about the Korean War when he was flying jets. Basically that's for guys that went to college and took probably calculus and everything else. I know my son is a pilot, was a Navy pilot, and he flies for American Airlines. But that's impressive.
You bet.
Well, Ted has always had that charisma. He can draw a crowd quicker than anybody, and I can remember, the Hilton Hotel in Cleveland on the main avenue at lunchtime, sitting around in the lobby and talking about baseball, and Ted had that booming voice. And people going by, and and the door would be open, and they'd look in, and they'd say, what's all that in there? So he said, well, that's Ted Williams, and they're talking about hitting and pitching and everything else. And then people would come in off the street to listen to him. Yeah, he was a fantastic guy, and it was a pleasure. I mean, not many people could say they played with Mays, they played with Manlin, and they played with K-Line, and they played with Ostremski and Williams. I used to get all over Yaz.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, if he didn't, if he had a couple of games where he didn't get any hits and everything else, and he'd start running down first base, and then scoot right into the dugout, and people started to boo him and everything else. And to show you how smart I was, I said, you know something? They run better ball players than you out of this town. Not knowing that he was going to be a Hall of Fame player, Yeah. So that was a great thing. And then, like I say, we just had the 100th anniversary there, and a year ago this past May, I was inducted into the Red Sox Hall of Fame. And there's a lot of good company there.
You bet.
Yeah.
Almost against my will, I got back to Fenway Park. Somehow it felt disloyal to the Brooklyn Dodgers, but it seemed crazy to let this love affair go on the rest of my life and never enjoy another team. So reluctantly, in about '67, a perfect time, I started going back to Fenway Park. And then that whole season took place, and it was such a miracle at first that they had been in 9th place the year before, and they had this impossible dream of a year, that at first I didn't see the similarities between the Red Sox and the Brooklyn Dodgers. I thought I'd found a winner, finally. But then the similarities set in.
In 1966, the Boston Red Sox wound up as they so often had before, at the bottom of the standings. Then, in 1967, they got a new manager, Dick Williams, and a new lease on life. Right-hander Jim Lonborg won 22 games, all the while serving in the Army Reserves as the Vietnam War continued to escalate. But it was the play of one man who made the difference. Karl Jastrzębski, the son of a Polish potato farmer from Long Island, and Ted Williams' replacement in left field, almost single-handedly carried the Red Sox that year. He led the league in nearly every batting category, a .326 average, 44 home runs, 121 runs driven in, and was named Most Valuable Player. We went from losers to winners, he remembered. Suddenly it was a joy to go to the ballpark.
It wasn't just that he was the triple champ. It was that in every clutch situation, when he came up, you knew he wanted to be there. You could watch him straining to hit that ball because you knew he wanted to be a hero. And I think for most of us in life who are so afraid of that kind of moment, when something's going to maybe happen that you think you'd run back to the dugout, the fact that he wanted to be there was just the most thrilling thing to see. And he came through every single time, so it seemed.
When I remember, think of Jastrzębski, I think of his hands in the bat. He used to clench the bat like that. He'd just grip it and grip it. And he'd look with that intense look. His face looked as if the skin was pulled over. And his eyes were staring like that. Just electric. You thought he'd tear apart sometimes. He just hold the bat like that and swing. He was magnificent.
Hot town, summer in the city. Back of my neck getting dirty and gritty. Bend down, isn't it a pity? Doesn't seem to be a shadow in the city. All around, people looking half dead, walking on the sidewalk harder than a match head. But at night it's a different world. Go out and find a girl. Come on and dance all night. Despite the heat, it'll be alright. Don't you know it's a pity the days can't be like the nights in the summer, in the city, in the summer, in the city.
It was the tightest race in American League history, with Boston, Detroit, Minnesota, and Chicago all in contention. In the Red Sox final 12 games, Jastrzębski batted .523 with 23 hits, 5 home runs, and 16 RBIs.
Bill Monbouquette's first professional baseball team was the Corning team in the Pony League in 1955. His manager was Glenn Wright, and his team made the playoffs. Tell us a little bit about your first year in professional baseball in the Pony League. The New York Penn League. Or was it the Pony League then?
It was the Pony League.
Right.
It was a full league.
Mhm.
And I graduated in high school in '55, and that was my first stop.
Mhm.
And my first start, I didn't fare too well, and I got sent to Bluefield. Then the following year, I came back to Corning. Corning was a wonderful little town. A minor league town that had, and I don't know if they have these things anymore, where the merchants, you know, if you won a game there, you got a shirt, and if you didn't want to take the shirt then you let it go all summer. And I won 15 games that year in 1956. I saved them all up to get a pair of slacks and a sports coat or something like that. And the Tarantelli family. I stopped in there, oh God, I don't know how many years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, I guess. It was an Italian restaurant, and they fed us after the game. I mean, you know, for $225 a month, and you were paid every 2 weeks. So there wasn't much left under $225 a month after taxes, and then we lived in people's home. They were wonderful to us. And I loved Corning, and I could still see the old ballpark and the Chemung River behind there, because I know I threw a few home runs into that river, and of course the Corning Works, they allowed us to go over and use the pool table, and they had a bowling alley in there. You know, the first year, like you try to explain to these kids here, it's the toughest year you're going to have. Maybe for some, it's the first time away. Maybe they have girlfriends, they miss their girlfriends, or whatever. But You know, in order to be successful, you got to be mentally tough in this game. It's as simple as that. And for some, it's really not. It's you would hope, and it does happen. You would hope it wouldn't. That some consider it a summer part. It's a summer job, and you know, soon it passes you by,
Yeah.
and you're getting a pink slip, and you know. I always went to spring training with the idea somebody's trying to take my job. I mean, it's coming, but I don't want it now.
Right.
And some think it's never going to happen. And when it comes, it's a rude awakening. And I try to tell all kids, don't ever let anybody outwork you. You have to be your own man there. Because you might have some guys say, what are you trying to do? Show us up? You know. You run your way, I'll run my way, and I never let anybody outwork me. I can honestly look back and say, hey, if I got beat, it wasn't because I didn't work, and it never stops as long as you're in this game. It never stops, because when you get there, you can't say, well, I'm finally here, I don't have to work anymore. It doesn't work that way. Because somebody's trying to take your job there, somebody's hoping you'll get hurt, then I can jump in and take a spot. You know, I mean, I got called up from Minneapolis that way. One of the pitchers got hurt, and I got called up.
Yeah.
And once I got a taste of that, even though I did have a taste of it, as an 18-year-old kid throwing batting practice all the time, and finally I said to Johnny Murphy, I said, geez, I have to go out and get my feet wet here, you know, and that's when I got sent to Coin. But here's a little side story that when I first signed, my mother and father at the game, I just finished throwing batting practice, and our seats were way down in the right field.
That's okay, it's fine.
And so we were sitting there, and these two drunks came in behind us, and they had snuck a couple of jugs in, and they were drinking, and they were swearing, and they were slurping it all over the place. So I asked them, I said, hey guys, you know, and they told me to go jump in the lake. I looked at my father, and he went. And so we took care of that, and the next thing you know, they were marching us out of there, 2 cops, downstairs. And so I called Johnny Murphy, and this big Irish cop, he could not pronounce my name. And he said, Mr. Murphy, and he went into his Irish brogue, which was very thick. And of course, growing up in Boston, I grew up in Medford, Mass, so we had lots of Irish people there, so I was around that all my life. But he said, well, what's the problem? He says, well, he said, I'll be right down. So down he comes, and he says, I'll take care of this and everything else. So John said to me, what happened after, you know? And I said, well, you know, they spilled the booze all over my mother and everything else. And I said, I can't take that, I'm sorry. I mean, where I come from, we don't take that. And so he said, well, how good you get him? He said, ask my father, he'll tell you, we got him good. And so, but I remember that. I mean, it's funny how, you know, that was your first day as signing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, my mom and dad didn't know anything about it. I mean, there were no agents then.
Sure.
You know, like I say, I made $225 my first month.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't do it any different.
Right.
I played in I thought was a great era in the 50s and 60s. It was still the era of the 5, 8 teams in each league. It was a wonderful experience. I mean, you know, not everybody gets a chance to do the things that we did, and to travel, and to meet some great. Ted Williams introduced me in 1960-61 to Ty Cobb
I'll be there.
in Scottsdale, Arizona, and he was going through some tough times. I remember I just gotten beat by the Dodgers, and he said to me, "Oh, I like the way you pitch, son." And he was in a wheelchair, and Ted was wheeling him around, and we talked, and you know, he had no control of his bowels. You know, I mean, he had a little mishap there, and so, but you know, it was wonderful. You know, and I got a chance to meet Lefty Grove, and a lot of great Hall of Fame players that you know you think about. Smokey Joe Wood.
Sure. Well, in 1962, you probably met one of our local claims to fame in Jamestown here. He pitched with the 1912 Red Sox. His name was Hugh Bedient. Hugh Bedient pitched, he was 20 and 10 in 1912. That was his rookie year. And that was a world championship year. And then 50 years later, they all came back to Fenway to celebrate their 50th. And Smokey Joe Wood and Duffy Lewis and those guys.
Exactly. Well, and then I met him there.
Yeah.
Because I was there. Yeah. That's I mean, guys are so big and strong today. You know, they've got into the weights and stuff. The thing that bothers me is we know they're big and strong. Why is everybody breaking down? Nobody likes to try to give you an answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if weights are the answer, but I don't think guys throw harder today. And sure enough, you don't see the good curveballs, and they don't throw inside like we did. I think pitchers are intimidated by all of this. And you know, I played hockey, and you know, I always tell people, well, you know, if you went into the corner and you kind of shied away, you know, that they'd know that in Edmonton before that game was over.
Sure.
And everybody'd be taking a run at you. And you know, when they're out there nibbling, and they're denying the nibbling, you know, I relate it to the dog. The dog knows when you're afraid of him, and the hitter knows when you're afraid of him. And you know, there are some games that there isn't, you know, there's never been a pitcher that didn't nibble. He was trying to make that nasty pitch right off the bat, you know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it's the training. They sure don't run as much as we did. They used to run us with the fungo. They run us with the ball, and they don't do that anymore. I wish they would.
Right.
I used to enjoy that. And in fact, you know, when I was over in '97 over in St. Catherine's, I run those guys with the ball 4 or 5 times a week. I run them with the ball here last year. And the problem is my arm's gone, and I can't throw it very far. But nobody loves to throw batting practice any more than I do.
Yeah.
And, when I tell guys, hey, home runs, I'm an authority on those. I mean, I give up 221 of them. I think that says I'm an authority. But remember down at in '88, I was coaching for the Blue Jays at Myrtle Beach. I think I give up like over 4,000 of them. I mean, it was a small park, you know. But that's what batting practice for. It's right there. And even when I was like a coach with the Mets in '82 and '83, Kingman used to say, especially when we went into Wrigley Field, he'd say, "How about right there?" Because he didn't want to hit it on top of those buildings. He wanted to hit it over those, you know, in Chicago, because that's where he played there. And but.
Who hit the longest home run off you?
The longest home run was Leon Get Your Rags from Daddy Wag's
Wagner.
And he wore me out. And I must have been tipping my pitches or something. Because we were playing in Dodger Stadium, and he hit it. It was like 370 to the fence there. And then there was the bullpen. And that bullpen probably ran another 130, 40 feet out. And there was a palm tree right there at the parking lot, and when it landed in that tree, a covey of quail come flying out of there. That is the longest one. I remember Radish, he always tells the story, and he says, you know? When we looked up and we saw that ball going past us, and then we see it land in the tree, he said, we couldn't believe it. But he also tells the story about when Earl and I were going to pitch. He said, we used to call the Mass Turnpike Authority and ask them to close down not the eastbound lane, but the westbound lane from 2 to 6, okay? But, you know, joking around. But, I did get a chance, though, to go upstairs in the 600 Club and look. Now you can see over that fence, you could see on the Mass Turnpike, and I'm saying, oh, wow, that's where some of those balls went then, huh? In fact, I think I caused a 5-car collision on that westbound lane at one time, but I love it. It's been great.
Gary Greenmont.
Okay. You're the best. This has been a lot of fun.
Well, I try to make this game fun. You know, I don't like to. I mean, not that you shouldn't be serious, but you got to have fun doing it, because if you have fun, you end up being a better player.
Anybody ever tell you you look like Frank Larry wearing that Tigers outfit?
Frank Larry? No, he was a pretty good pitcher.
Good pitcher.
Yeah.
But I mean, just I'm looking at you,
Yeah.
maybe I saw too many old baseball cards tonight, but you look
Yeah.
like him. So you don't think I'm completely insane, here's a picture of Frank Larry as a Met. In 1950, he played with the Jamestown Falcons, where he had a record of 5-2, and was the beginning of a terrific career with the Detroit Tigers and ending up with the New York Mets. Thanks to Bill Monbouquette for making a visit to Russell E. Dietrich Park just a little extra special. Oh, to have an opportunity to spend some time with a guy who played with the likes of Mantle, Williams, Yastrzemski, and himself being honored by being inducted into the Boston Red Sox Hall of Fame in the year 2000. Thanks for the memories.
In 1961, Mantle and his teammate Roger Maris set off in tandem after Babe Ruth's home run record. Maris broke it, adding to the legend of a team others saw as awash in arrogance and loaded with muscle. Boston Red Sox pitcher Bill Monbouquette.
When I pitched against the Yankees at Fenway especially, I used to just watch batting practice.
And here comes Richardson. He hits line drives all over the plate. And then Tony Kubek hits the ball the other way. And then the bombers were coming.
Oh, my God. Couldn't believe you could hit balls that far, and it was easy. I'd watch Al Forrester, groundskeeper, go up the ladder, on the wall with 4 or 5 buckets and come down with all of them full. Now, you knew how many balls that were in there, probably 150 balls. And when we finished batting practice, we only had 1 bucket. 9 balls in there. Think about it. I'm going to pitch to these guys. Next thing you know, Scarron's taking some ground balls. He said, "You going to hang me any curveballs today?" or something, you know.